Dudes, welcome to another Tall Garage episode. You've been asking for it. Is an update on the Iron Duke that we put a turbo on and stuff. So we're gonna go over everything that I talked about in the last video, which wasn't done, is done now. So stay tuned. This is my Turbo Iron Duke project for shits and giggles. And it's really R&D for other projects I have, like in the works, I suppose, or stuff I'm like spitballing. As much as you guys probably don't like LS stuff, I think we can all agree that the ECUs are probably the most tunable OEM option for most engines. And they can be easily put on V8s and made to work. And for super cheap, you know, I can get LS ECUs at the junkyard for like 30 bucks, right? So super easy. Wiring harness, you know, you got another 80 bucks on eBay. So overall, it's a really cheap setup. So I wanted to put one on an Iron Duke. Now, if I remember right, V8s, they trigger every 45 degrees. So if you half that, every 90 degrees, you can run an Iron Duke. You have to change firing order around, obviously, but you know. So this is an LS trigger wheel. This is a 24 tooth reluctor wheel. Has this really weird dual pattern on it. But luckily though, someone has figured out how to make a single pattern wheel. So in the future, you know, I'll probably get a laser cut single pattern wheel. But anyway, so I wanted to use this on this engine to try to use an LS ECU to make it run. So me and my pal came up with this. So this is just an Iron Duke pulley. And we put this plate on here. And we TIG welded it on there. Well, we didn't. A friend of his did that. Is way better at TIG welding than we are. But he TIG welded this plate on there. And then once we got the plate on there, we used it as a center hole to true it up to put on this lip. So, you know, didn't have a whole lot of run out. And now, got the trigger wheel mounted on here. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I got to make a bracket to point a sensor at the wheel. So I'm just kind of looking at the front right now. There's a hole right there I'll probably be able to use somehow. And I might have to use one off like the front cover or something. But we will get her figured out. I just wanted to show you guys. Figured you'd find interest in this. All right. So I don't really remember where I was in the last video. So we'll just kind of like do an overview of what I know we talked about. Turbo manifold. Let's talk about that real quick. I made this. The files for the flange are in the Tall Garage Facebook group. It's not perfect. I did have to move some holes around with a grinder. So hopefully the next revision will be better when I ever make one. So yeah, it's made out of Schedule 42. Next time I'm going to use Schedule 10 because it will give me a bit more room for bullet hole clearance. Like you can see down in there. Not a whole bunch. So yeah, Schedule 10, be a little bit smaller. I think that'll work out better. This is a GT25, I think, off of eBay. It was like 100 bucks. But yeah, so we did all that. Super cool, right? So I talked about the intake and I talked about the trigger wheel. And since we're right in front of the trigger wheel, let's talk about this. All right, so let's talk about this pulley. My friend, Shad, great Shad, he had this little plate welded on here, and then he used that as a reference when he machined this lip, so it was all true. And that lip puts on this trigger wheel. Now, this trigger wheel is an LS trigger wheel. For the Gen 3 engines, the plan is to use a Gen 3 ECU to run this. And the only reason it works is because, you know, of the V8 and this 4-cylinder, they fire the same degrees. Every degree in 360, they fire the same. You just take out half the firing orders and you line them up. It'll work, I think. So now a big problem I was having, is how to mount the stock sensor. So this actually isn't the stock sensor. This is a Gen 4 sensor, but you know, for purposes. So I was having a hard time figuring out how I was going to mount it, and it wasn't going to be as elegant as I'd like. And you kind of have to use the stock sensor because there are apparently two elements in here. Two Hall effects in here, and they combine their signals because there's only one output. They combine their signals, and the ECU reads it. There's some magic going on in here because as you can see, there's 2 layers to the trigger wheel. So it's kind of an odd pattern, right? Well, I didn't like that. So we did away with that sensor. We did away with this wheel. And there's a company out there that designed a trigger wheel that is one-sided, produces the same signal with a standard Hall effect sensor. So I looked at their wheel and I made my own wheel. We don't know if it's going to work yet, but it should, right? So yeah, pretty nice, huh? Anyway, this is going to go on there, and because we're not using the stock wheel, we get to use just a standard Hall effect deal. So this is going to go in this little bracket I made. There's a hole right there. This is just for testing purposes. It's out of wood, obviously, but made this little bracket. This is going to go in here in this hole and point at the wheel. So that'll be real nice. This real simple little bracket I made, little bolt holes on the side of the engine. So and this should work pretty good since it's going to be out of aluminum. This is revision 1. I had to make a few changes. We're going to get revision 2 also made out of wood, and before we get the aluminum one made. So the only problem I see with this as it is there might not be enough material to thread the sensor in, which I probably could have solved by making the trigger wheel bigger. But I made it stock size. So we're probably going to get like a little 1" by 1" piece and tack weld it on here to give it some more threads to engage. But that should work great for the ignition. We're not even going to have a distributor in here. On these engines, you don't need a distributor in here because it doesn't run the cam. The cam and the distributor run separately. Or I guess I should say, the cam is run by the crank, and the cam runs the distributor, but you don't need a distributor for the cam to work. So there's going to be no distributor in here. It won't need it. We're just going to use a cam sensor eventually. We have tested this now. You do not need a cam sensor for the Gen 3 and the Gen 3 ECU to run in sequential. It'll just do it. Eventually, it figures out what stroke you're on. So that's the ignition, that's turbo, right? So the other thing let's talk about is the intake. Now, I showed this in pieces before. It wasn't done, but we've done a lot. So we got our fuel rail all machined, and we got our injectors all in, right? Came out pretty nice. Got our fittings welded on each end. Hopefully they don't leak. We got our throttle body on and mounted. Yeah, pretty nice. There are a couple. We got inlet air temp sensor in here. Still got to put a map sensor in here. So what I'm probably going to do is take, I think these are bigger. Take one of these plugs. Yeah, take one of these plugs and have it machined to put the sensor in the plug and then just run the plug in. So that should all work out pretty good. We've been doing the wiring on it. I'm gonna do a whole other video talking about the wiring because it's kind of universal across platforms. It's not just this engine, but yeah, the wiring is coming along. I know it looks like a big mess right now, but I've pruned like 50% of the wires out of it. Got rid of transmission, most of the O2 sensors, a bunch of shit I didn't need. So that's done. But yeah, it's really coming along, guys. There's already a starter on it. So we're gonna start it just like this on the stand. Shouldn't be a concern. We're gonna pick up a T5 or an NV 1500, like I said. Then we're going to slam it in a 75 Vega. So that is the plan for this engine. The reason I'm doing this engine is kind of the test mule. I want to just tune, and if I blow it up, I won't feel bad, right? If I blow it up, I paid $100 for this. I can go get another one probably for about that, right? Everybody's V8 swapping these days, or already has, and these are all sitting in the junkyard. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. The other thing I did is you can see down here, we'll take a little, getting this bracket mounted up to hold my my coils. We're going to do coil near plug. This is the factory LS bracket. And as you see, it uses the factory. I have one in the factory mounting for whatever went there on the Iron Duke originally. But it's going to work out perfect. It's got to drill one hole, put a nut and bolt in it. We'll be good to go. But I had a question for you guys. Do you think it'd be better to take the spark plug wires up and over, which is what I'm thinking about doing, or go around the back like stock? Down there, the coils are going to be down there under the intake. This is the stock the stock bracket that goes on your head, and then the stock mounting location for the coil is on this tappet cover. So I just made it fit, drilled a new hole, and one of the holes lined up, and it came out real nice. So that's where that's going to be. Should be enough room to get plug wires on everything. So yeah, then we'll just loop them around, probably through the runners, over the top of the engine. I think it'll look all right. But yeah, I'm looking for an AC bracket. If anybody has one, I will trade you my AC delete bracket for an AC bracket because I want AC on this engine. But I guess we can wrap it up now. All right, my dudes, that is pretty much all I've gotten done. I probably spliced some more footage from a while ago when I was working on the intake and stuff, maybe, into the video. So hope you guys all enjoyed that. If you got any questions, let me know. I'm interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on this. Like I said, you know, everybody online is telling me I'm wasting my time, you know, and how I'm not going to make big horsepower. Like, no shit, I'm not going to make big horsepower. So Iron Duke makes like 100 horsepower, you know, so if I double it, ooh, I got 200 horsepower, right? You know, this is just kind of for the fun of it. This is just kind of learning. I'm learning a lot. I did most of the TIG welding on the intake. I, you know, did the manifold. I'm learning the wiring. I learned all this ignition stuff with the trigger wheel. So it's been good. It's been good. And this is going to be, like I said, just a test mule to, you know, get better at tuning. I can't really offer to tune someone's car if I don't know what I'm doing. I would rather blow this up than someone else's, right? So yeah, anyway, if you guys found it interesting, like and subscribe. There's going to be more content on this coming up this year. We got a bunch of stuff that's hopefully going to happen this year, and I want you guys along for the ride. So this is Tall Garage signing out. I'll catch you on the next one.